This is the Overland Archive Backpacking Podcast.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you all for hopping on the podcast with us. Today, I'm your host, Patrick. Welcome to the Overland Archive Podcast. Today, I've got Lewis Ciddor sitting down with me. He's all the way over in, I think, Melbourne, Australia?
Yep. Melbourne.
Welcome. So it's Tuesday there, Tuesday morning. Yep. I'm still on Monday, my friend. I still got a case of the Mondays. No, man, thanks for having me on. So, I mean, just to catch everybody up or whatever, you reached out and was like, hey, let's do a collab. And you didn't know this, but I was also thinking about reaching out to you. I've listened to some of your shows. You got some great content. And you're coming at it from a much different perspective than I am. You know, like I'm the guy that doesn't, I'm like an average bike packer, you know, like I haven't won any races or anything. And then you got the Tour Divide guy over here. And so well, I mean, it's true. I mean, I like that there's, diversity and like options for people to go and like check out from different people's perspectives. You're going to have questions and like no shit that I'm not going to know. So when you reached out, I appreciated it. And also, God, in this world, I love the idea of collaborating because there's so much not collaborating going on. So, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, me too, man. It's my pleasure. Like you said, it's really cool. I'm really excited to sit down and like, I guess we're both doing similar things in this like podcast bikepacking space. And I love what you do. Like I listen to lots of podcasts because I can do it at work. I've been like listening to you since the start and really enjoy it. But like you said, like I just sort of thought that I could offer like a slightly different perspective, and I think it's cool because we are sort of offering different perspectives on the same thing, and I think together it sort of helps paint this like really complete picture.
Well, I hope so. I mean, I was gonna give you shit about like, you know, why did you start a podcast? You like looked and were like, well, these guys are shit, so I think I'll start one too. But I know that's not what it is. But I mean, my niche has been like, I don't know, like I'm the dad with the kids that can only do the micro adventures a lot of times, and I'm lucky I get like an extended one, you know. And it's just so there's the thing that I think you and I are both probably realizing, and a lot of people are realizing, is that bikepacking is 100% growing, exploding at a rapid rate. Everything's kind of slowed down with like COVID and everything. But I mean, if you look back 10 years ago to where we were, 10 years ago to now, I mean, it's just insane. Bike manufacturers are making bikes. I mean, the routes that are popping up are everywhere. The media coverage is so, the point being is that there's a lot of people who are interested in getting into bike packing, and what I try to do with mine is I there's a lot of stuff I don't know, right? But I think there's a lot of people that are getting into it that are new, that are more, probably on my level, that can relate to my perspective of talking to somebody who won the Tour Divide and be like, holy shit, like what is that like, And then you can come at it from a totally thing. It's like, oh yeah, I remember that section and that was hard and blah blah blah. It's just like a totally different thing. So it's cool.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, let's get into it. Before we start, though, as is your tradition, Miles Arbor has a song. So Miles, take it away.
Hit it, Miles.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes. Or death. Bikes. Or death. Podcast.
Hey folks, Lewis here. I'm just going to jump in real quick for a little bit of housekeeping. Also, we didn't really explain what's going on, so if you haven't figured it out, or if you don't know both of us, depending on what podcast you're actually listening to this through, since we're both Patrick and myself are putting this out. Patrick is the host of Bikes or Death podcast, and I'm Lewis Ciddor, and I host the Overland Archive Podcast. We're both bikepacking focused podcasts, so if you are aware of one but not the other, go check the other out. We're basically splitting this interview down the middle. So to start off, I'm going to be asking Patrick some questions, and then about halfway through, we'll flip it around and he's going to start asking me some questions. Although that said, it is fairly conversational the whole way through. Pretty casual, which is, it's just actually a really fun chat. So I hope you enjoy it. From me, I would just like to quickly thank some new Patreon supporters. I always try and make a point to shout those people out. So Axel, Hilton, Claire, Justin, and Ash, thank you all so much. Both Patrick and I, we make these shows happen out of our own pocket. So if you'd like to support either of us, we are both on Patreon. So patreon.com/bikesardeath or patreon.com/Overland Archive. All right, enjoy the chat. All right, so Pat, you've been running Bikes or Death podcast for a while now, and you're based in Texas, right? Well, whereabouts in Texas are you?
It's College Station, which is like a smallish town in between Dallas, Austin, and Houston. So those are pretty well-known large towns for people probably in the States. I don't know how many people in Australia know where Austin, Texas is, but you know.
Okay. Well, I know College Station because I know Texas A&M is there. I'm kind of into college football a bit, so.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, American college football?
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Well, I lived in Canada for, 5 years or something, and a really good friend of mine, Tom, is really into football, and just got into it through him. And
is that unusual for an Aussie to be into like American football, or is it common for? I have no idea. I've never been to Australia before.
No, it's pretty rare. I mean, I guess following in like the NFL and stuff is growing, but definitely people being into college football is pretty obscure here.
Okay.
But
I was just curious. Yeah. I'm surprised that like over in Australia, you know about College Station, Texas. So that's wild.
Yeah. Cool. So maybe, what's the riding like in Texas? What do you got down there?
God, right now it's hot. Today the heat index was 115. Texas is big, so it's hard to talk about Texas and just like sum it up in a little, sentence. It's the second largest state in the United States. So I can just probably talk more accurately about, where I am, and it's just flat. It's flat. It's honestly like not great riding, but we are lucky because from where I live, there's 45 minutes. There's the Sam Houston National Forest. That's where I posted that route on bikepacking.com, the Sam Houston restaurant tour, which again it's like, I don't even know, it's like 50 miles or something. And there's 2 restaurants on the way, so you can just, drink a beer and eat a pizza or whatever you want to do. But again, it was gear. There's like 8 million people in a 100-mile radius of Sam Houston National Forest. So I'm like, there's a lot of people who are wanting to get into it, and this is a great introduction to it. So, I kind of down talk Texas. I'm a Texan, lived here my whole life, but whenever you get out and you start, exploring and seeing what other states and what different areas have to offer, you just get jealous. And I've been here 40 years, so I'm ready for a change.
Yep.
God, Batch is so bad.
I have heard you talk a few times on the show about Big Bend. Is that in Texas, or is that?
It is. Okay, so I was about to go there actually. Big Bend is the huge caveat to Texas for me, or one of the big ones. And I'm only talking about the natural, and what bothers me about Texas is the lack of public lands. Like less than 3% is public land in Texas. So, Texas is great on a lot of levels, but if you like to recreate outdoors, that's where it kind of stops being great. But Big Bend is on the border, the west border of Texas. It's where the Rio Grande is, where Mexico and Texas meet. So that area is just so incredible. It's where the northern and the southern continents collided, and so the geology there is just insane. You're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the nearest town is hours away. The nearest hospital is like 6 hours away. And so your night sky, it's not designated as a night sky. I can't remember what they call it. But I mean, you just see forever. I mean, you're seeing UFOs at night, and during the day, you're seeing some of the most amazing. It's like you're on Mars during the day. So it's incredible, man. It's like 1 million acres of just rugged. It's what you picture. If you watch a Western or you picture Texas, you're picturing Big Bend. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's where the real cowboys were and like the real hard men. I'm actually interested. I've talked about this a little bit, and with COVID, it's been put on hold, but I'm going to be hosting some kind of event, ride, something at Big Bend. We're actually we're working on it right now, hashing out the details. But the idea is I really want to introduce people to the culture that was there, the people that developed it, the geology, and just everything, the flora, the fauna, like get to know your environment and respect it and appreciate it. So yeah, I have a deep love for Big Bend, and it is in Texas.
Okay, cool. That's
it's
awesome.
It's 10 hours away from me.
Yep. Okay.
10 hours.
Drive?
10-hour drive. That's the thing is I can get to the mountains in Arkansas faster than I can get to, and it depends on what part of Big Bend, because if you go to like Big Bend National Park, that's a 12-hour drive. So
wow.
Yeah. Texas is big. Texas is big.
That's huge. Cool. Well, from there, I'd love to hear a bit, I guess, about your background in bikepacking, because obviously I think that's sort of shaped your, like, I guess it shaped what led into you starting the podcast, obviously. So, like, tell us a bit about how you got into bikepacking, and sort of like what led you up to the point now.
Just a perfect storm. I grew up in the outdoors, specifically in Boy Scouts, and I even became a Boy Scout leader and led trips to Colorado and stuff as I became older. And so I just had a love for the outdoors, but not a love for hiking or walking. I have ADD, man. I gotta, things gotta be happening faster for me. And I'll make this story short, but like, I got into like drug use and abuse at a young age, and like went to jail a whole bunch, and like really just kind of went down a bad path. And like when I decided I was going to rehab and kind of turn my life around at the age of 21, I kind of rekindled my passion with biking, cycling, specifically mountain biking. Got into racing. I was terrible, not fast at all. Then I got into like the endurance, the 6 hour, the 12 hour, the 24 hour stuff. And I'm like, okay. And then like Ride the Divide came out. And crazy enough, like in my little small town, Billy Rice, I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yep.
So he was the first person to yo-yo the Tour Divide, which is north to south and then south to north, all in one go. And then he also tandemed it with his daughter, his 16-year-old daughter. So, and he lives here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And then we've had some other people that have ridden on the Divide and got into bike packing. And so I just kind of got lucky that, Ride the Divide came out, and I had some friends in the cycling world that were getting into it at the same time, and yeah, it was a no-brainer for me. I mean, once I saw that you could put your shit on your bike and go get lost in the woods, I mean, it was game over. I mean, we don't need to talk about anything else. I know what I'm doing for the next whatever many years I got before I'm dead. I mean, it's there's nothing better than that, man. I mean, the ultimate absolutely. Freedom. The how empowering it is to know that you can put everything you need and you're capable of going out into a wilderness environment. There's no one around you. There's no hospitals or McDonald's or anything, and you're having the time of your life, man. I mean, can't put a value on that.
No, for sure. And for me, it's like it's the perfect. It's just like the perfect pace, because you can go fast enough and travel far enough that you can cover so much ground. You watch like the landscapes around you change quite rapidly, but it's also still like slow enough that you take everything in, like it's like hiking. I love hiking, don't get me wrong, but like it's a lot slower pace. But I still think you get the intimacy of hiking, but with the ability to cover more ground. I don't know. That's what gets it for me, anyways. But
oh yeah, I mean that's where my ADD. I mean, yeah, you said it right. I mean, you're going at the exact right speed, and you're doing there's human powered. You just can't.
Yeah,
there's something so empowering about doing. I mean, you're driving in a car or something. It's like, who cares? When you're pedaling your bike and you're doing it, and at the end of the day, whenever you're watching the stars or sitting around a campfire. And you're there because you brought yourself there. It's a much better feeling. You feel really good about yourself. I do.
Absolutely. And I think, like you say, like that effort sort of connects you with the landscape. And so like you say, if you go like up a mountain and if you just drive, like I don't feel like you have to consider it in the same way because it doesn't require any effort. Whereas if you pedal it or you hike up that mountain, then you get to the top and that view or that like spot or whatever, you're just so connected to it because of the effort you've invested in getting there. And then like you say, at the end of the day, like sitting at camp or whatever, and just like that satisfaction of being like, I got myself here, like it's, I don't know, it's unbeatable.
Preach. I love it, man. I just took a friend on her first bike packing trip, and it was just fun. Like, this person, I mean, she'd ridden a bike like 8 times, and I was like, hey, let's go into the desert and go bike packing. But awesome. I promise you can do it. Like, people don't realize how capable they are, right? They don't even know that they can do that. But I know what I'm doing. I knew everything was fine, and we went and we did it. And it's like, when it's done, is how do you feel about yourself now? Like, how are you going to take that back into, when you're having a stressful day at work or whatever? Yeah. Like, you can handle some shit, it just changes your mind frame whenever you approach. I'm getting a little too spiritual, but yeah.
No, I love it.
Welcome to the bike church.
No, that's awesome. I guess you mentioned before that you have you got a family, you got responsibilities and that sort of stuff. And I guess that's limited your ability to get out and race and stuff. But I think you were training for an event earlier in the year before COVID happened, right?
Yeah, it was.
Can you tell us a bit about that, what the event was?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So, I mean, my bike packing racing experience is very easy to summarize. In 2018, I participated in the Grand Gravel 500, which actually starts and finishes here in College Station, Texas. Billy Rice is the race director for that. So it's cool to race one of his rides, and because he's Billy Rice, he can usually attract some cool people. One of my favorites is Hal Russell. That's where I met Hal.
I know Hal.
Hal and I. He was my bunny. Like, we were just hopping back and forth over each other the whole thing. He wound up beating me, by the way. So, but yeah, that was my first dude. I remember Jose Bermudez. I don't know if you know him. He's done some cool stuff in bike packing. He's a local as well. And so I was getting some advice from him before the race, and he's like, man, you're not racing it, you're touring it. I mean, when I told him everything I was taking, Yeah. But I approached it like I didn't care. I just wanted to finish. Like you said, with the family and the full-time job and everything, I couldn't train like as much as I would want to. So all I cared about was finishing it. Like, I wanted to start it and I wanted to finish it, and that's what I did. And it hurt and it was really hard, but I know that I can ride my bike 500 miles now. So that was cool. So fast forward to this year, and I actually had an interview, a big podcast interview. I'm not going to say who it was, but lined up, and it fell through like a month before I was supposed to interview this person. And that opened up my schedule to do the Grand Gravel, because I was going to interview him rather than do the race. And so like I wasn't prepared at all, but I started training really hard for it. And what I wanted to do for that one, and I still want to do it, is just go all out. Like, I want to know what it feels like, because I talked to guys like you. I mean, I haven't got into your story yet, but I know that you have to get yourself. You really have to find where your limits are and keep pushing past them, and just see how your body's going to react. Are you going to hallucinate? Are you going to, get your tendon or your Achilles that flares up? I mean, what's going to happen? And certainly when I did the race the first time, I had all kinds of ailments, but Yeah, I wonder, there's a question mark. What happens when I absolutely gut myself with no consideration for finishing? I don't care. I mean, of course I want to finish, right? But like, that's not the priority. The priority is just like go as hard as you can for as long as you can until you fall over, or, you know, safely fall over in a ditch.
Yep.
So yeah, that one, and that was an interesting thing because the official race was canceled because of COVID, and there was like, I think 2 people or 3. There was only 2 or 3 people that even lined up on an unofficial race. So it just, and I didn't know what was going on with the virus and everything. And as a father, I made a decision to be home with my family, and I think that was the right call.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely.
The races, like we've heard before, the races aren't going anywhere. So
exactly, that's it. But that's cool, and I got so much respect for that. And I think, like, sort of to speak to your initial experience with the race in terms of just like wanting to finish. I think that's one of the coolest things about bikepacking events is that they can be like whatever you want them to be. Right. And I love that people like Billy, who are like, you know, like really important people within the sport are putting the energy in to create events like this and using their platforms to like bring people in, you know? Because like they do have that opportunity to like influence people and get them into the sport, and like creating an event with an established route and putting other people out there at the same time, like it just makes it so much more accessible for people, I think. And, you know, it got you out the door, and I don't think it matters like how fast or how slow you want to go. You got out there and you rode the course and you challenged yourself, right? And now, like, that's given you the experience to decide, okay, well,
go from there.
Yeah, now I want to try it this way and see what happens. Like, it's great. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, I love what's happening in the sport overall. I hope that we, you and I and everybody else can keep it what we want it to be. I mean, bikepacking has some very grassroots. I mean, it's so grassroots, you know, and you have people like Billy Rice. It's not a big corporation or whatever, a company that's put on this race. It's a guy, you know, it's a guy that's just passionate, that rode his bike a fucking shit ton, that found a route, that put it together, that did the work. He's not making money or getting rich on this shit. I mean, he might make a little money, but I guarantee you he isn't rich, at least not from that. Anyway, but I just... I don't know, man. I love so far mostly what I'm seeing from the community and how what you were saying about people are using their platforms and doing good things with them to build the community and to make it a good one. Because I think there's so much. It's going to grow so much more. Like I was saying, you know. So how, you know, you and I and other people, we all have a choice. Like, we're going to get to determine kind of how this thing evolves and grows and what kind of sport is it going to be, you know, and what kind of people are going to want to come and hang out and ride, and what's the vibe going to be and all that kind of stuff, you know. I mean, I don't know. That's important to me. I don't know if you think about that much, but having a podcast, sure. if it's important to, No, absolutely. I think, like, it's such an interesting sport because it's very young, first of all. And so, like, people like you and I have, like, a huge potential to influence it in telling the stories. But I think also as well because of the nature of it, especially the racing side is so underground that they're, like, outside of, you know, like, a few things like Ride the Divide. And you talk about that film and, like, that's most people's starting point into the sport because there's so few little like windows that have turned the lens onto the sport and given people an opportunity to see into it. Yeah. And so that's absolutely what I'm trying to do with the podcast, is to try and tell stories of different people and connect people into the sport through those stories. Yeah. And I think it's probably a good point in time to sort of note, I guess, talking about our platforms, is, especially with everything going on at the moment, is that using the platform to like actively try and help diversify the sport and tell stories from different perspectives, because let's face it, like, cycling is a very white male dominated sport, and it's so white.
Yeah. And so, like, doing these interviews and being able to offer these different perspectives, I think it's really important, definitely to me, to try and talk to women, talk to people of color, and like share those perspectives and help people see that like this isn't just a sport for white men, and that like as a community we want to diversify. We want to make it more accessible to other people. And I think like sharing those stories goes a long way.
I couldn't agree more, man. Like 1,000%. I feel like really grateful to be in a position to even have a voice that anybody's listening to, and the fact that I have that is not something I'm going to squander, I have 2 daughters. I talk about it a lot. So, and the other thing I talk about a lot is like, it's weird because there's so many good women athlete and in bike packing, I mean, which is where we reside. I mean, it's not hard to find them to interview. So this isn't like complicated. I will say with people of color, it's harder, right? I've been on, I know Black Lives Matter is obviously like a big topic that's going on. How much is that impacting, or how much are you all aware of that in Australia?
It's definitely like, we're very aware of it. We have an interest. I guess it's interesting here because we're a very white society. Obviously, like Indigenous, or not obviously, but Indigenous Australians are people of color. But like our history, which is fairly similar in colonial terms to America's, in terms of historically the way we have treated First Nations people, and like really just decimated their population throughout our history. And there's still in a lot of cases, like, don't have the same opportunities and access to like the outdoors. And so I would say they're extremely underrepresented in the outdoor industry, but is probably a much whiter population overall than America.
No, I mean, it's you mean your overall population? Yeah. No, I'm with you. No, I thought you were about to say about the cycling and the outdoor industry, but no. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Australia, other than your Indigenous, Aborigine. Is that
yeah.
Aboriginal? Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So Aborigine is sort of considered a slur.
Okay. Thank you.
Saying it
you never know till you know.
That's it. And I think so long as people are willing to like ask and be corrected and take that on board, like that's all we can do. We learn, right?
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, the reason why I started a podcast, my secondary reason is to get people out in the outdoors. My first reason was to promote conversation. Like, I'm a huge fan of podcasts, and what I realized is that, if you're listening to just a news or a Facebook post or whatever, you're not getting like a full. Like, I just always seek out the best information. I've said that almost my whole life. Like, seek out the best information. Like if you're gonna like look into something, like read some books. Like, who's the expert? Like, let's talk to those people. And I'm not certainly claiming to be the expert, but what I want to do is promote conversation, the ability to just sit down with someone and talk to them. And even if you disagree with them, like, listen to what they have to say. Talk about it. And I mean, I had a conversation recently. It had nothing to do with bikes, and my mind was changed. I mean, you go in with an open mind to something. But yeah, I don't know. It's just scary. I don't like the way that people are communicating now. Ultimately, like, that's the thing that really bothers me. One of the big things that bothers me, and I think that it's the one thing that can keep us together and unified, is communication. And it's not always easy. We live in a world that is like stacked against you. Advertisers and media and stuff, they want, Facebook, they want you to have opposing views because that's what keeps you there. That's what keeps you engaged and fired up. And that's what makes them money, right? So like, I don't know. I hate all that,
Yeah.
And I wanted to be an antidote to that. I wanted to promote good conversation. Like, so whenever you talk about, what you just said about, hey, you never know, you know, that's what I need to be able to talk to someone. I've never been to Australia, but I need to be able to talk to you and be like, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that, and like, it's okay that I didn't know. Like, I can't know everything.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, for sure.
I'm going to church a lot with you tonight, Lewis. Maybe a couple of too many of these whiskeys. I don't know.
No, it's great. Like you said, like, and I love that this is like, this can just be a conversation, because I think it's so, like, normally, like, I like really conversational interviews, but they still kind of inevitably end up being like interviewer and interviewee and kind of like have that dynamic. Whereas I think we've just kind of stripped that dynamic out and we can just chat, which is awesome.
So what do you want to chat about?
I don't know. I want to hear more. I just want to hear more about like how you got to this
about
point
me. You want to talk about me?
Tell us about how you got to the point where you were like, I'm starting a podcast. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I was researching obviously a little bit more about you, and I wonder if you and I followed a similar trajectory. Like, I know you used to have a blog, and that kind of converted into the podcast. And I was looking for, like, I have a job and all this stuff, and I'm pretty well like established in my life. But okay, so now I'm established, and now it's like, okay, well, what can I give back? What can I do? And my job is fine, but I don't like love it. Like, it doesn't do a lot for me in terms of like, I feel like, I don't know, like Steve Jobs said it best. I want to leave a ding on the universe. Like, I want, like, what are you going to leave behind? And like, the outdoors is something that's brought so much. I mean, I talked about a little bit earlier about my drug use and abuse and all that, and the outdoors and bikes and everything. That's what saved me. That is what has become my new drug and my new passion, and that's what I put everything into. And now I'm addicted to that, and it's been a great thing. And so I want to be able to share that with people. And so it's just been a matter of how. I've done a blog, I've done some YouTube videos, and I actually had started. So then the podcast came along, like I said, and I started to really value other people's podcasts and understand how important it is to have these conversations and to be able to put that out there. And I really believe it makes a difference. Like, a lot of podcasts have shaped me for a better person. It really opened my mind and introduced me ideas or ways of thinking that I wasn't accustomed to. And that's been good for me, right? So I just saw the value there, and I actually created a separate podcast called, Not Totally Inaccurate, with another Texan. And we were just, it was kind of silly. I think we were trying to break down the stereotypes of what it was to be a Texan, and because there's definitely like some stereotypes out there. But we recorded a couple episodes and it was complete trash. Never released them, never will. I won't ever listen to them again. They were terrible. And then so I mean, it just was like happenstance. Like, I was going to North Carolina for a wedding. And like I said, I've been doing blogs and stuff like this. And I kind of had the podcast. I had the equipment. And I was like, you know what? Why don't I just like see who's in Asheville, North Carolina, and see if they want to record a podcast. So I made a list of people I'd be interested in. The first one I contacted was Greg Hardy. And he said yes. And I freaked out. And I was like, holy shit, I got to interview this guy. And the rest is history. I mean, people, I didn't think anyone would listen to it, really. And they did, and so here we are. Hi.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, no, it's funny. It's funny. Like, there's been a few people where I've like, wanted to reach out to interview and like, did not know how it was going to go. Like, people who I hold in fairly high esteem, and, like someone like Lucky Morton and stuff, who's like a professional cyclist, and was just like, fuck it. I'm going to shoot him a message. Like, if he says no, he says no. If he says yes, then sweet.
Yeah.
And he was just like, yeah, sweet, let's do it. I was like, shit.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? I've said the same thing so many times to friends of mine. Like, I mean, even Greg Hardy, he responded in like 2 minutes. Like, he was like, yeah, I'm definitely down. You're number one. You've never met me. Nobody knows me. I don't have a race pedigree that you can look up. I'm not sponsored by anybody. I'm just some random guy with a microphone, and you just said yes to me. Like, that's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Equally as crazy was Lael Wilcox at number 10. That's a crazy story. Can I tell you?
Yeah, go for it, please.
So I just happened to be in Northwest Arkansas on a family vacation. And I'm on Instagram, of course, because I'm addicted to it. And I see that Lael is there to present her film, I Just Want to Ride, I believe it was, at this film festival. I was like, holy shit. So, of course, I sent her a DM. And she was like, oh yeah, I'll definitely do it. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, I pooped my pants hard. And then I pooped them again on the way to go interview her. You know, it was like crazy, dude. I mean, that's just like, when I started the podcast, to me, I was like, if I could interview Lael at any point, like, you know, like that's as good as it gets. And to have it happen in episode 10 when I barely knew what I was doing, and I still barely know what I'm doing, was pretty incredible. And I don't think I messed it up too bad, so I was happy about that.
Yeah, no, I get that feeling. Like, I know, like, listening back to a couple of my early episodes when I was like still really figuring things out, I was like, ooh, like, I'm still not great, but I've definitely come a long way. So
yeah,
but
I mean, it's a fun art. Like, and that's what I've realized is that it's not as easy as just hopping on. And that's what I learned from that first one. Like, me and this buddy, we were so good, and we would palaver over a campfire for hours, and we would have these great conversations, and then we try to record it, and it just didn't work for whatever reason. But I've learned that there's an art to the conversation, and I'm interested in getting better. Like, I'm always trying to get better. I listen to myself, and I'm like, I used to not listen to my own podcast, but I've started to make myself listen to it so that I can be a student of it and like, okay, how can I get better? Right. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's really interesting. And I think it's like, I consider myself a fairly like socially awkward person. And
me too.
It's funny. I think like having like doing the podcast, I don't know what gave me like the idea is like, I should do this because like I'm horrible at talking, but like it's actually made me a better conversationalist. Like I'm better at holding conversations with people now because I'm kind of have to be really conscious of it and like figure out how to like, you know, like steer conversations and like lead and like that sort of thing. And it's like,
listen, that's the hard part, right? Because you got to listen to what they're saying and then also be ready to like either respond to that or divert the conversation to where maybe I'm giving away all my secrets. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I'm writing this down now.
Oh my gosh. Take the notes.
I'm stealing all your stuff.
Steal away, man. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's just, it's fun to get better at it. You know, it's like, I've learned that it's an art and it's a skill, and it's great to believe in conversation and want to be open-minded and listen and all that. And then it's another thing to actually do it and to like be in a situation where you have to talk and you have to be on and you have to have a question ready to go. But you need to be I don't know. It's harder than I thought it was going to be. But it's also become fun. Like, I love the challenge of it, you know, and everyone is different, you know, like every time I hop on, the vibe is always a little bit different. The conversation always flows differently, and it always is, it's always fun for me. Yeah. I will say the one area where we may differ is like, I'm socially awkward. Anytime it's like me, another person, and then you add one more person. If there's like 3 people, that's when I'm like, okay, this is awkward. But if it's just me and another person, I've always been able to conversate really well because I don't like meaningless conversations. I get really bored. And like just having these like surface level conversations have never really interested me. And so whenever you're in a group, a lot of times that's the dynamic. At least, for me, at least I feel like, and maybe that's just my social awkwardness coming out. But I've always been very interested in people and understand their stories because I think they're important to help shape your understanding of the world. Like, how did you view this? How did you experience this? You know, like I'm not naive enough to believe that my experience is the only one that matters, right? So like, how I like to get to know people. I always have. I have an insatiable curiosity, and so in that way, podcasting has been a very natural fit for me. Yeah. The unnatural part is that I know that thousands of people are going to fucking listen to this, and that is not okay.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that. And I guess that like idea of like other people's stories and other people's perspectives, because I think going back to what you were saying before about like leaving your dent on the world or whatever, and like I guess that's kind of like in a way what I'm trying to do with the podcast is like share my perspectives on things, but because like I don't know everything, and so being able to share it through this media with other people, not only am I able to learn from them, but I'm able to, I guess, share my perspectives in a way that are also informed by other people's perspectives. And I really as well, that's what I think what I really love about your podcast too, and the way, like you were saying about getting into people's minds and stuff. And I love that because, you know, while you interview obviously like a lot of like bikepack racers, and I think you do like a great job of like getting into their minds and asking the perspectives of just about like what makes them tick and how their heads work to, like, I guess, like what it takes to sort of push themselves to the elite level of this sport. And I think you do a great job with that. But at the same time, it's like that's not exclusively where your interviews go. And like you're also talking, like, you know, you've also hosted guests who were like first timers, like talking about like their very first experiences.
I love that.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Well, I mean, that's kind of where I want to be. Is I want to use like the big names as inspirations and kind of be like a person that someone could look to and say, okay, yeah, I got a family, I got a full-time job, I got all these responsibilities, but you know, you can still go and fucking do the shit. You know, like, I don't know, I like to fill that gap. I feel like there's a bridge there. It's like, you know, we're at home and right on our single track, and then there's a fucking Tour Divide. No, there's a lot in between there. So let's talk about that, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, it's funny. It's like, well, it's not funny. It's like you realize that you're blowing my mind, even that you even listen to my podcast. Like, that's weird.
Why is that weird? Like you're offering like amazing content. Like, it's like,
because you won the Tour Divide, dude. You won the Tour Divide. You don't need to listen to me. I don't have anything to say.
No, you absolutely.
You're listening to my guests. That's what you're doing.
No, but the thing is, like, you facilitate them telling their story, and like you have to ask the right questions to get that information out of them. So like you create the platform for those stories to be told in, and so like it relies on you as much as it does on them and their experiences. And
I appreciate that. I try to keep it. You know, my thing is like to let. I just want to share other people's stories, yeah, but for sure, like you say, I mean, some of me is going to come across. I got a loud mouth, I talk a lot, and I got a lot of opinions, so every once in a while they're going to slip out.
Yeah. No, and I think that's what makes it so great, and what also just like the podcast platform so great. Like, you know, like we were sort of saying, like, I'm always trying to learn. Like that's like my MO, and like that's on a personal level, on like an athletic level. And so like listening to podcasts, especially like bikepacking ones, it helps me grow and improve like on a personal level. And the fact that I can like pop a podcast in while I'm at work is like, I think, the greatest thing, because I can ride around like doing my deliveries at work and learn every day.
Right.
And
oh, I love them. I mean, you're doing housework, you're mowing the lawn, you're going whatever. I mean, yeah, my mind needs to be stimulated quite a bit. So they're great because it allows me to, I feel like I'm being productive while I'm also doing the dishes, which is also productive. Double productivity. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
So what do you do for a living? I'm curious. I'm always curious what people do for a living that do this kind of stuff, especially at like a high level, because it takes a lot of time, right? So like, yeah, what do you do?
Okay, so I'm a bike courier.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, like there's it's cool. Like there's a few of us out in the bikepacking world. Obviously, Sofian, Kai Edel, who races like a really high level. There's a handful of us that are still like working messengers. Obviously, it's a weird industry these days. It's kind of on the decline in a lot of ways, but I run a small company, a small independent company here. That's my company. I run it with I have a business partner and then a couple of employees.
That's so cool. How long have you been doing that?
The business is 5 years or 6 years old now. And then I've been a courier for, I don't know, 11 or 12.
Wow. How old are you?
It was my 31st birthday yesterday.
31st?
Yeah.
Oh, happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got 9 years on you, god damn it. One thing so let me go back one more step. Why did you get into Bike Messenger? So you're that was 11 years ago you said, so you were 20, so you got out of high school. That was basically like your first job.
must be a little bit longer than that. Basically, yeah. So I finished high school. My first couple of jobs were bike shop jobs. I sort of like my entry into bikes was like riding to school, like every day, hail or shine. Like it was really, I could take the bus to school, but it was like really kind of convoluted. Like I had to walk quite a long way to the bus stop and then ride the bus and then walk quite a long way to school from the nearest bus stop. And so it was like, it just took a long time. It was way quicker to ride my bike. And it just meant I could sleep in longer. And so just got in a habit of doing that. And then obviously, like if you wake up and it's raining, because, you know, I wouldn't check the weather. I was like a kid. But if I woke up and it was raining, like if I then decided, oh, I'll take the bus, then I was going to be late. So just always rode, like pretty much like no matter what. And
that's great training, actually.
Yeah, it kind of just like set me up like into this mindset of using the bike as a tool, and like that it kind of taught me that, like, you know, riding in the rain was fine, like it wasn't a big deal. And obviously like gave me a level of independence and stuff. But yeah, like I finished high school, and then I just saw like it was like literally like a sign in like a local bike shop window that said they were looking for like someone I don't know, whatever like job wanted. And yeah, applied, got the job. And so first, like I probably spent like a year or two in a couple of different shops, and then I'd made some friends with some of the local couriers, and I ended up like leaving a job. I just wasn't getting along with the people in that particular shop. And then yeah, who
wouldn't like you? I don't understand. You're so nice.
I don't know.
So I want to ask you a question about couriering that I didn't ask Sophie on when I interviewed him, and I'm still upset about it. But how well, I'm not upset about it, but I wish I would have asked him. It's so cool, right? Like you never are not on a bike hardly. Like you sleep not on a bike and you shit not on a bike. But other than that, you wake up and you're riding your bike, and then you got to train, and you know, then you go do a race. So how does that like impact, or how does it facilitate your training? Your just like, I don't know, the bike is like a part of you at this point, right? Like it's just everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, especially having been doing it for as long as I have now, like my body is so conditioned to just like get up and get on the bike. And like I don't think like work Ks are particularly like productive training or anything. Like they don't make me fast, but they just condition me, you know? Like my body is used to just wake up and you get on the bike and you do it again.
Well, it's your body and your mind too. Like you're just like it has to become like just like second nature for you to just always be on your bike, which has to help whenever you're racing. I don't know, I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, that's pretty much it. But so for me, like when I decided that like I really wanted to, I guess, get serious about it and sort of get serious with racing, and that was sort of at the point where I was like gearing up. I'd done a couple of like events and races, and then was gearing up for the 2018 Divide. And I was like, right, okay, like I'm good at this. Like I have a really good endurance just from work and doing long rides because that's what I enjoy. But like I need to figure out how to get fast, you know, like, and so I worked, I got a coach, this lady, Jess Douglas, who's like a 24-hour world and national.
When was that?
That was like the start of 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you hired her specifically for Tour Divide training?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, Jess is like 3 or 4 time world 24-hour solo champ, like mountain bike. And she's dabbled in a bit of ultra stuff as well. And I sort of looked at her background. I guess the thing was like I wanted to have a coach that would understand what I'm trying to do, because I didn't think there was like many people out there that would.
No, yeah.
And you know, so I really have the confidence that Jess like has the experience and has the knowledge to sort of like bring out. And I think that the main reason that I wanted to have a coach was that I didn't want to overtrain. I was worried about like I guess like I wanted the specifics of like how do I get fast, but also how do I keep track of everything to know that between like my training and work that like it's a manageable amount and I'm not going to overdo it and put myself in a hole or injure myself or anything like that. And Jess did a really great job at that. And the way she looked at it and sort of the way we worked through that training was that like you have I have the endurance, right? Like just from work. And so that's not something that I really need to work on. And so most of my training was like high intensity stuff to like, I guess like fine tune the top end. So if you sort of think about like your riding ability as a spectrum of like the sort of slow speed endurance, just grind it out all day. Like I had that. So like it didn't make any sense for me to go to like wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. and go out and just like plod around, ride for, 3 hours and then come home and then go to work and plod around doing deliveries for another 8 hours. Like it's kind of pointless. It's just more of the same. And to a point, like that's not actually going to get you anywhere. It's not going to actually improve. Like if I'm already doing, I mean, it's not 8 hours of riding, but say I'm doing like 4 or 5 hours of riding in an 8-hour workday, like adding a couple more onto that isn't really going to get me anywhere. So what we were doing is like higher intensity interval and tempo workouts, and that sort of sharpened like the top end and made me like strong and fast and allowed me to just sustain like higher speeds more comfortably for longer periods. So it was just basically making me faster, and then a big focus on like I guess overall body strength. So like core workouts. I run quite a bit as well. I go through waves with running, but was definitely running quite a bit to sort of like try and keep things balanced.
You look like you run. When I see a picture of your freaking legs, I'm like, that dude runs. Yeah, I checked out your legs. Yep.
But
we all do it, goddammit.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's like that dude could fucking ride a bike or run. Yeah. Anyway, go.
But yeah, so basically, like, I really love Jess's approach, and it really fit into like my philosophy and how I wanted to approach things well. So it was like a really perfect match, which I think I got lucky with because I could see situations where you start working with a coach and it just like doesn't fit. Mm-hmm. Like you butt heads or you don't see eye to eye or whatever, but we really had sort of like the same approach. And
is she still your coach? Or is Jess a guy or girl? I actually don't know.
Woman.
Okay.
Yeah. And so no, not currently, but I did like, I don't have a coach full time. So she coached me for 6 months leading up to Tour Divide. And then she coached me for like a 4 or 5 month block leading up to Colorado Trail Race, and like that's it. So
that's cool. I wonder. I mean, I wonder how many people know that because like you watch like professional athletes and they have a coach all the time, but you're on your own dime. I think probably a lot of it. Maybe I actually have no idea. But I mean, like, you're not a professional athlete, so you just hire a coach to get you ready for an event. You're like, hey, that's what I'm trying to do. These are my goals. Here's where I'm at. Get me there. Is that kind of the idea?
That's exactly it. Like, I basically just look that, like, I want to have a training block to sort of, like, sharpen my tools, like, leading up and sort of, like, build up that fitness leading up to an event. And I think I am lucky with work that it sort of provides me, like, an incredible base. So I don't have to be like, okay, like, a year out from an event, I'm going to, slowly work up from zero.
Right.
And work up.
Yeah, your baseline has to be amazing.
That's it.
I mean, your fucking ass has to be like leather. Your body is just so used to being on a bike. Yeah, so your baseline has to be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Like, like I probably start from 50 or 60 and then work up from there, like at the start of a training block. So I don't have to.
It's funny. I mean, look at you and look at Sophie on, I mean, y'all are both messengers, and I don't know. I'm looking forward to talking to him again and finding that correlation or parallel between being a bike messenger and doing well in ultra endurance events, because to me, in my mind, again, I'm not either a Tour Divide winner or a courier, but just your familiarity and your comfortableness being on a bike as just second nature has to be good. Like, it has to play a role.
Yeah. Well, here's a cool anecdote for you. It's like, as I said, like, I don't always have a coach, just sort of like leading up to like my big A events. But the start of this year for Victoria Divide, which is my race, it's 500. It was 570 kilometers this year, so I don't know what that is in miles. Maybe like 300 miles or something.
Yeah, it's 300 something. I looked it up. Yeah, it's like 360 or something. I don't know. But how much elevation?
Oh, it is like 11,000 meters. So I don't know what that is, like
33, 35, something like that. Yeah.
35,000 feet.
Yep.
So a
something
lot.
Silly. Yeah,
Serious.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
And honestly, like, outside of work, I hadn't really been riding my bike. Hardly at all, like, for a little while, like, leading up to that, and just got on my bike at the start and rode for 44 hours and took like a 30-minute nap in the middle, or not even a 20 minute nap, and 20-minute nap or something in the middle, and that was it. And just like that, I did not ride fast, at least by my standards. Like, I was kind of just plodding along, but I think the mental resilience that I've sort of built up through experience on the bike and experience through racing, and that baseline fitness from work was enough to just get me through, like, sort of stubbing my way through with like pretty much no training outside of just work.
Are we talking about the Victoria Divide or the Tour Divide?
That was Victoria Divide.
Yeah, that's okay. I thought that's what you're talking about. So this is the race that you created. 2019 was the first year it kicked off, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So 2 runnings.
And so
now.
you won your own race. You cheated. Yeah. No. You got to win your own race, right? That's
Well, it's embarrassing if you don't. I didn't first year. So.
Wait, so 2018 was the first year? When was the first one?
Wait, there's been 2. So it's 2020. Yeah, so it happens in February. So
okay.
February 2019 was the first year, and then February 2020 this year I won.
Okay. I have my dates wrong. I didn't realize. I saw something on Facebook that like an October 2020 event. Is that wrong?
That is the GDT 400, which is an older race. It's 400 Ks, and I'm just taking that over. So it's been running for maybe like 6 years or so, and a few different people have managed that. I have the current course record on it, and
I was about to ask if you still did. Yeah.
Yeah, I still got the course record on that, and then, but yeah, I'm taking over managing that.
Oh, cool.
Going forwards, and
man, you got your hands in all the cookie jars.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on some other stuff. I actually really want to create a third Victorian route, and then have it as like a Victorian sort of Triple Crown event, like spread over the year that people can.
Is that the one you just rode and put out some GPX on, like within the last week, or is it different?
No, that's not going to be a race. That was just a tour. But it was such an awesome trip that like I'm just like, people got to go ride this, because it's in a part of the state that's like pretty remote and like pretty sandy, and not a whole lot of people are ridden out there. And there was a couple of parts like through this national park called Little Desert, and I literally could not find a single lick of information anywhere of anyone having ridden there before. So it was just kind of going out and trying to figure out like if it was rideable or enjoyable, and it was so cool. It was like awesome riding. There was a bit of walking, like this. There was a few bits with really soft sand that was like unrideable, but just get off and walk, and it wasn't too prolonged of a stretch. rideable and definitely enjoyable. I guess the thing about hike-a-bike in sand is that it's actually like easy. It's just going for a walk, whereas like, you know, like hike-a-bike up a mountain can be actually really hard work.
Like the one on Hunt. I listened to your podcast with Dan Hunt, and y'all were talking about that one hike-a-bike on the Hunt 1000. He said, I think 8 kilometers maybe. It sounded terrible. You did it at night. I remember that. Yeah, it was, which is worse. I think we should circle back to your Tour Divide, because you were talking about the training going up to it, and I think we need to, I definitely want to talk to you about that. Actually, you'll know probably that I just interviewed Bailey Newbrey. It's Newbrey. Who in 2018 was a second place finisher to you on the Tour Divide, and he was only on one gear. Right? So, it was just cool to talk to him, and then we hooked up. I'm like, cool, like now I get to hear the other side of the story. So number 2 on the 2018 Divide was Bailey Newbrey. Now I get to hear your story. So I'd love to hear first of all, here's my first question. I wonder if you can answer this. What does it feel like? What does it mean to you to be a Tour Divide winner? No one can ever take that away from you.
Man, it's honestly, sometimes I don't believe it. It's I don't know. It's crazy. It was actually a really weird ride. Like, I guess like the second half of the race, I opened up like a reasonable gap on Bailey, like at least like comfortable. Like there was no point until like I touched that border that I was like, this is mine.
Yeah.
There's so much room for shit to go wrong, injury, mechanical, and Bailey was crushing it, but there was a point like about halfway through where I opened up maybe to about like 100 Ks lead, and I was like, I could do this. Like, I could win this thing. And it was really weird because like I'd sort of gone in and my goal was 15 days, which really meant anything that started with the number 15. So like if it was like 15 days,
as long as it's 15 and
23 hours, 59 minutes, like I just wanted it to start with 15.
That's a fair. Okay, I'm glad you answered that question that I was going to ask. Is what were your goals? Were you going in to win, or you just wanted to hit the 15? So you had that's even crazier, right? Like you weren't going there to win. You were going to do probably your best, and you thought your best was 15. I mean, I don't know. I'm putting words in your mouth again, but
no, but that like that's pretty much exactly it. But it's kind of funny, and it's I'll get to in a minute. Something that Bailey talked about with you, where that was my goal, because that's what I can control. I can't control what anybody else does, but that was my goal, and that's what I wanted to achieve there. And I guess I knew that historically, like, that would put me in with a good chance of winning if I did that. But
yeah, you're definitely in the conversation.
There was still a big part of me that didn't believe that I could actually do a 15-day finish. And certainly I didn't really think that much about the possibility of actually winning it. But so in your interview with Bailey, he talks about like a moment riding with Gareth, who's a really good friend of mine, is another guy from Melbourne who was also racing on SingleSpeed, where they were riding together and Bailey pulled out Gareth pulled out some time splits of previous people racing, and Bailey like made some jab at him, and Gareth turns at him, and I know it's so funny when Bailey told this story, I know the exact look and the exact tone that Gareth spoke to him in, because I've had the same thing. But so Gareth turns to him and he says, because obviously I guess like the insinuation
what the fuck are you doing, mate?
Yeah, like what the hell? What the hell are you trying to do? And it's like, that's it. It's like, he was there to win. Like, all three of us were there to win. And it's kind of funny to think that, like, both Bailey and I were in the same position of, like, trying to go really dang fast, but at the same time, kind of, like, not confident enough, I guess, to sort of be like, I'm going to win this. Yeah. And so, like, riding and having that much time, like, alone with my thoughts and the realization that, like, I was in a position to win it, like, that was incredibly emotionally overwhelming. And I spent, like, a good amount of time, like, crying because
really,
like, it was like that overwhelming. I'm an emotional person, like, as it is. I have no shame in admitting that, but I think as well, like, your hormones and stuff go, like, all over the place when you're pushing your body that hard. And so, like, I would have these moments where I was just crying, like, while I was riding, because it was, like, just so overwhelmed with, like, I guess, pride in myself that I'd worked so fucking hard and was, like, pushing myself, but that, like, I was actually doing this thing that, like, I was sort of scared to, like, admit that I was going for, and, like, scared to admit that I, as much as I was, like, aiming for, was, like, didn't know that I was capable of or whatever, and realizing, like, man, like, I can do this, I'm capable of this, and, like, realizing, I guess, what that meant in terms of, like, what I'm able to do. It was kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, man. I love to hear that. I don't know. I guess if you, like, picture somebody who's at the lead of a Tour de Vie, you picture this, like, sleep-deprived, like, just, I don't know, just like, this, like, aggression, this, like, I'm gonna fucking get out there, I'm gonna fucking win. But you're having to battle yourself, you're not just against the field, like, you are there out there ahead, and you've got to figure that shit out, you got to be confident in yourself, or even not, and then find out that you are later. But I mean, you're battling that, and you're figuring that out at the time. Was that your first Tour de Vie?
Yep. That was, like, my first.
That's crazy, dude. Yeah. That's fucking nuts. Like, that's what I'm saying is, like, you hadn't even experienced it to know, to, like, have a mental background or a physical experience to where, like, you kind of, like, know even what to expect, Like, I don't know. It's just, it's a wild thing to think about being in that position. And I like the way that you told it. It is a beautiful thing. And it's okay to be, like, surprised and proud of yourself. Like, especially with something like that. Let's not kid ourselves. The Tour de Vie, to me, is one of the hardest. I mean, I know but bikepacking in general, this ultra endurance bikepacking, is one of the most hardest things anyone can physically and mentally do. And that's the thing. It's not physically hard or mentally hard. It's both. You got to do both of them. And you also got to get lucky, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Really interesting, though, I guess, on that, like, that mental thing. I guess you're talking about how, like, what you picture of somebody at, like, the front of the race. And it's really interesting because, every now and then when I would check in on the dots and see, like, how close Bailey was, and I'm, like, thinking about what I've been doing, and I just, like, I think about Bailey, and I'm like, man, this guy is a monster. Like, he's an absolute animal. Like, he's not sleeping, he's riding so much, like, he's going so fast, he's covering so much ground. Like, how the hell am I going to keep up from him? But meanwhile, like, I'm actually, like, in front of him, but it's like I'm seeing myself as this, like, exhausted, like, tired, like, emotional, like, person, and I see all of my own struggles, and I'm trying as hard as I can and pouring it out. But then I look at him or his dot on the map, and I'm like, this guy is unstoppable. Like, how is he doing this? Like, how is any human capable of doing this? Yeah. And meanwhile, I am doing it. But it's like there's this separation between, like, the way you view yourself and the way you view other people.
Yeah. No, I get that. You're like, man, this guy's a fucking lion. He's coming to get me, and he's chasing me down, and he's not sleeping, and he's hot on my trail. I can't slip up. He doesn't know and the whole time he's not having he's struggling too. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I liked also whenever he talked about how you and him connected on Instagram during the race, and broke down some of these myths. I mean, I don't know if they're myths, but I mean, that's the kind of the cool thing about podcasts where we're at with bike packing is that all of these were question marks, right? Is like, what is going through someone's head? What are the emotions that they're experiencing? Are they friendly with each other? Are they like trying to cut each other's tires at night? Like, what are they doing? Cutting the tires was a joke, but but I mean, the fact that y'all were like texting, you're like, dude, you're killing it. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think like just being out there together, like, so I didn't know Bailey from a bar of soap before the race started. We shook hands on the start line because we both everyone's lining up at the YWCA there in Banff, and the people that want to go fast, they just, there's no marshalling, there's no whatever. The people that want to go fast just go up to the front, and that's pretty much declaring like, this is where I want to be, Yeah. And so, like, I knew most of the other people that were lined up there, and I didn't know Richard Dunnett, who is he's a British guy that lives in New Zealand. So, like, we sort of said, "What's up?" And same with Bailey, just shook his hand, and that was the only time on the entire course that I saw him. He passed me once in Idaho while I was sleeping, which you heard him talk about, and that's it. And then I passed back in the morning while he was sleeping, and we never actually saw each other on course.
The way he told that, and I didn't see him again until he picked me up for the whatever race y'all did like the next year,
Yeah.
And the way he said that was pretty well said. So I was curious for you, what was that like when you woke up and this motherfucker had passed you and you're like, fuck.
Yeah, it was, I mean, because at that point, I was probably like 5 days in or something. And so, I mean, I guess probably the first 3 days or so, I was kind of bouncing around between first and third. And then leaving Basin, Montana, Richard had actually crashed coming off of Lava Mountain, like just out of Helena, and he hurt himself, and that ended up being his undoing. And then Gareth had actually passed us, I think, that night, and then that was it. So after leaving base in Montana, I had the lead, and had a couple of hours on Bailey at that point, and so then had a couple of days riding with the lead. And so it was definitely like, like not a comfortable lead by any point, but was sort of starting to feel like, okay, like I have a bit of control over this race. And yeah, definitely, I don't know, waking up in the morning and seeing...
Did you have the lead for 10 days then? Like he passed you on day 5. Yeah. How long did you have the lead? About 9 or 10 days, something like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially I had it from the morning of day 3, I guess maybe that would have been in leaving Basin. And then lost it for, I guess, about 2 hours there on day 5. And then had it all the way to the finish from there.
Wow.
So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had time to like really sit with being in the lead. It wasn't, I guess, I didn't really quite put that into my brain that you were really just sitting on that lead for such a long time. Did anything change for you? Did your I don't know, man. You know how it is. It's like you go on a race. It's different when it's Tour Divide and it's 15 days, right? But if you go on a race, you get zealous. And you're like, oh, go, and then you burn out. Did you have any of that, or did you just like stick to your guns and do your thing?
It was really interesting for me. Like you said, it was my first Tour Divide, but it was my first race of like any substance or length. So my racing experience before that had been the GDT 400, which that's when I set the course record.
And that's a Great Divide Trail.
Yep. And that was
Australia.
Yep, that's correct. And that time was like, I mean, it was like 22 hours and 50 minutes or something, I think is my time on that. Something just around 23 hours. So not super long, but like enough to sort of learn how to like push through the night and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then outside of that was like 2016, the Hunt 1000, which in its first year, so that event is not a race. And Dan promotes it as such these days. But in that first year, I think everyone was sort of unsure about how hard other people were going to push. And there was a crew of people at the front that were sort of like, definitely not what I would call racing in the terms that I consider now, but definitely people pushing it, giving it a nudge, you know, trying to go fast, but still like sleeping.
But still sleeping.
and that took me just over 4 days. And that was it. Like, that was my, like, if you want to include that Hunt 1000 where I was like learning to sort of like push myself.
Yeah. I think 4 days
like,
for sure counts. I mean, how much did you sleep in those 4 days?
Probably slept like 7 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, and I think the last night maybe only 3 hours or something.
Wow.
So
How did you place in that one?
I finished first.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So how did your well, I'm still curious about your strategy. If your strategy changed. Yeah.
Right. Sorry. Yeah, I went off on a bit of a
No,
tangent
but
and forgot to bring it back around.
I do it all the time.
Yeah. So I guess like my point of that was to sort of inform that I kind of didn't know what my strategy was going to be, you know, because I didn't have the experience with, you know, lack of sleep for multiple days in a row, and for riding for 2 weeks, like, didn't know. And so like, I kind of just had to like, I guess it started off, so Brian Lucido won the race in 2017. And he kind of came out of nowhere. He's more of a trail runner, and he came out of nowhere and won the race. Beat Josh Cato that year, and went under 15 days. And I can't remember if I read an interview or listened to an interview, but he talked about this idea of, I guess, like sleeping longer and riding stronger. And so he was sleeping, I think, average about 6 hours a night. And I sort of looked at that and was like, that sounds like really sustainable, you know, like if you can do that, then, like, not having pushed the sleep deprivation thing before, I was like, this sounds like a good approach to me. And so that was my initial approach. And I think
6 hours every night?
Every night.
Wow. Yeah, that does seem like a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. To win the divide, especially to go under 15 days.
Yeah. So you mapped it all out. You had a strategy that you could sleep 6 hours a night, pound it out when you're awake, sleep hard, and do it over, and still hit 15 days.
Well, that was the original plan, and it went out the window pretty quick.
Okay.
Cool. So I think I'd sort of settled. I was going to aim for 5 hours. But then, so the first night we got into Fernie. It was pretty slow run into Fernie, because it was the second year with the Coco Claims detour. And also there'd been about like 5 avalanches that had come down across the trail. And so there was like these huge like avalanche debris, like piles that you're like climbing over, that was like pretty tedious and slow. So it took a long time to get into Fernie. And I think we got there maybe about like 10 p.m. or so. And then 3 of us got a hotel room, and I think we slept for about 2.5 hours and then got up around like 1 a.m. or something and pushed off again. And it was just because they got up and I was like, all right, well, if they're getting up, I'm getting up. And then and then probably the next 2 nights, I slept about 5 hours. And as I said, Richard Dunnett was sort of in front of me, and he was, I think, maybe sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night. But so he would sort of take off in the mornings a little bit ahead of me, and I would catch him during the day, and then I'd sleep longer and he'd sleep less, and then he'd take off in front of me again, and I'd catch him during the day, and I was sort of like, okay, well, like, if we're sort of ending up around the same place.
It's like proof of concept, right?
Yeah, I was like, okay, well, this is working.
Yeah.
And then, as I said, he got injured when he crashed and sort of dropped off. But then I got a few more days in and was sort of still sticking around about the 5 hour mark. And I think, in Ovando, I woke up and I'd got in there and like fairly late, or I think around midnight, and then I got up at about 5, and like Gareth was there, and the last I'd seen Gareth was like hours behind me. But I saw his bike. There's like a little teepee in the town square there, and he was sleeping in the teepee. And I was just about to leave, and I heard him coughing, and so I was sort of like, Gareth, are you awake? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, man, what? How did you get here? Like, you were hours behind me. Like, when did you get in here? He was like, maybe like 45 minutes ago. And I was like, all right, man. Well, it's so good to see you, man. You're killing it. Like, I'm sure I'll see you down the trail. And he was like, nah, I'm gonna come. Hold up. And so like he'd been there like 45 minutes or something, and just like got up and like just rolled with me, and it slept like 45 minutes. And so like, I mean, I'm still like fairly confident at this point, because I'm like, look, if these guys aren't sleeping and I am sleeping, and
that's what I'm thinking. I mean,
like it's gonna work. But the days kept dragging on, and then I said I'd spend a few days in the lead, but still like couldn't actually like open up a gap at all. And then there was a point where I was like, damn it, like I want to open up this gap. And we crossed the basin, like the Great Basin, and Bailey talked about this, where I had this expectation that because it's quite flat, and both Gareth and Bailey, who are the two closest people behind me, were on single speeds. I was like, I'm gonna I'm gonna put some distance into these guys across here,
right?
And I didn't at all. And so that night I was like, man, okay, well, I can't outride these guys, so I'm just not gonna sleep. And so I think I maybe slept like 2 hours that night. I was like, I'm just gonna keep riding, and I'm gonna like not sleep. I'm just gonna take like a nap and then get up, and that's how I'm gonna open up my gap. And then after that, that night was 2 hours, I think, and then after that, I was probably averaging 3 hours a night, because I
And how did you handle that?
That was fine. There was one exception in somewhere in Colorado. I forget the little town. But yeah, there was one night where I maybe slept 6 hours, I think. I'd opened up the lead. It was maybe 100 miles at that point, and so I gave myself like a little bit of a longer sleep to sort of regroup, and then pushed back into sort of the 3 hour routine again after that.
So after listening to the Bailey Newbrey interview, do you have any desire to switch single speed and give it a go that way?
No, it's not for me. It's not for me.
He's the next level, man. He's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. And look, like I ride with Gareth enough to know that, I mean, yeah, not to sleep on single speeders. Like I know that they can, like, that's not really a limiting factor over that kind of terrain and that kind of distance. So like I wasn't like, I mean, although I did say, like, you know, there's part of me that thought like on that one section, like I might be able to open things up, but overall, like I'm not underestimating anyone on that basis. You know, like
I never. It just my mind never really like wrapped my head around that until he was talking about it. Even though Alexandra has won the Tour Divide on a single speed, and he's coming. Like I don't know. It's mind blowing from a Texas guy, you know, with no mountains around me to think that you could do that. But yeah, it was neat. It was neat. He threw down some pretty big claims about the abilities, and I was like, okay, this guy's for real, and he's serious about believing that, you know, single speed is not a limiting factor to being able to go fast.
No.
So he had some good points. But yeah, I don't think that's what I said to him, is like, I like my single speed, but you know, if I'm going backpacking and there's some elevation, I think my gears will be a welcome company.
Yeah, look, it's not for me, but like I think it's so cool. Like people like Bailey, Gareth, Chris Plesko, who is kind of like one of the first people. I mean, he's obviously got the single speed record currently, but like he's shown that like it's not the bike, it's the person. I mean, Chris has thrown down even on like the Colorado Trail single speed, like, you know, which is, you know, I can understand it on the Tour Divide. I can see how it can happen, but like to me, like I would have thought that like on something like as steep and technical as the Colorado Trail, that like it would make a bigger difference, but still not.
That's crazy.
Still not.
There's
actually a really funny story. Like as you said, me and Bailey, as you said, we'd sort of like messaged a little bit during the race, and then definitely connected after the race, to the point that we hung out in Colorado a bit last year when we were both going to race Colorado Trail. But after the race, he told me this story about, I was surprised he didn't share it because it's pretty great.
Okay.
So racing across the Great Basin, as I mentioned, and he was like not that far behind me, and like maybe an hour to 2 hours behind me, I think, at that point. And he saw like the tail end of the basin, like the sunset, like before we were coming into Wamsutter. And for those that don't know, there's like towards like the south end of it, there's like a big like gas field, you know, where they're like harvesting gas out of the ground. And so there's some like big, you know, like structures and stuff out there, like burning flames and whatever up in the sky. It's kind of eerie at night, actually.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But he saw this red light, like flashing off in the distance, and was like convinced it was me. Like he saw it and thought it was my tail light, and so he was like hammering, trying to catch me. And at a certain point, he like kind of got up near it and realized it was like one of these like gas towers with like a red light on top flashing.
I can't remember what they call those things. I should know because I live in Texas. But yeah, they're burning off some extra like gas that's coming off, and so like there's flames that come out. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, he'd been chasing this flashing light, thinking it was me. And then like finally got next to the tower and realized it was just like the machinery flashing. But meanwhile, that day, I knew he was super close, and was like, you know, every couple of hours or whatever, I had to pee, and I was like freaking out because I was like, there's nothing around, and I was like, there was a moment where I stopped and I was just like there's no one out there, so I just like stopped in the middle of the road and was like peeing like on the dirt road, right? Because it was like the quickest, you know, just stop pedaling, and like didn't even get off the bike. But then I was like, oh shit, like is he gonna see the pee and realize that he's like right there, because like the pee is still fresh. And so then I was like actually like spending more time to get off the bike, run off the road and pee, because I didn't want him to see the pee.
But would he know it's your pee, or would he think it's a coyote or something?
I don't know. In my head, he was gonna know. And there was also a point through the basin.
It's funny though, like that. It's funny the games or the things that are going through your head.
Yeah, and like there was a point also through the basin where so I knew what tires he was running. He was running Vittoria Mezcals, and so was Gareth. There was a point though where I started seeing these tire tracks, and I could actually see, it was really clear that it was a Maxxis Ardent tire, okay? And
I know that pattern.
It was very clear it was that tire. And I'd been riding all day, and I knew he was behind me when I left or like headed into the basin. But I was convinced that somehow he had got in front of me without me knowing it, and had somehow had Maxis Ardents now.
Yes.
And he was in front of me because there were these tire tracks. And lo and behold, sure enough, like later in the day, I sort of came around this like little hill, and someone had like set up their tent, someone touring the route, and their bike was behind the tent. And I sort of like rolled over and was like, hey, how's it going? And like stopped and just said hi to them for a minute. And I was like, we chatted for a second, and then I was like, oh, by the way, what tires do you run? And he was like, Maxis Ardents. And I was like, huh, awesome. Thank you. Goodbye. Like,
that's funny. Did he know who you were, that you were leaning toward a Divide? I mean, obviously on the route, he would be familiar with the race. Do you know?
I don't think that guy did, but I definitely crossed paths with a lot of people like touring northbound and stuff, and they'd cross paths, and like they was like so stoked to like like just get the opportunity to like say hi and to see me out on the route and stuff. And you know, for me, like I like flip side was like so stoked to see these people out there just touring and enjoying the route like that.
Yeah.
They were real highlights for me, getting to interact with other people in the route, especially like as we said, because I had been sort of just out in the lead by myself for so long. So to get those like little interactions with just like, hey, what's up? Especially, and then northbound tourists, they might be like, oh, how's the trail up ahead? Like, is there like any water like up that way? Like, you know, whatever, like asking for a bit of beta. And same thing, they might be like, oh, you know, like, I don't know, this section's really dry, or that hill's like really loose, or you know, whatever.
The apple pie at this place is really good. You got to check it out.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's funny. We talked about that on the Bailey interview too, with like the time. Like you're not always in this like super race mentality. I mean, I guess you kind of are, but it's at this like lot slower place. Like you'll stop and chat with people and just say, "Hey, what's going on?"
That's it. And you know, like for me, some of like my greatest memories are just from talking to people on the route. Like, so this one night, and I rolled into little town Hartselle, Colorado, and I rolled into the bistro, and there was like a northbound rider there, and you know, just got to chat with this guy Chase Medina, and you know, like I had like a burger there, and we just got to shoot the shit for a little bit, and then we both slept out behind the owner of like the bar, like let us sleep out like on the patio, and so we both slept out there and just got to like shoot the shit about a bit, and like
That's
you know,
cool.
like learn about each other's lives a bit, and then in the morning, like he got to continue north, and I continued south, and we just went on our way. But like, you know, we still like message on Facebook and stuff, and like, you know, I think just that shared experience like really connects you. So like, you know,
that goes back to just like the grassroots part of it, and the part of this sport that I really love, and I want to see it remain. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's about those experiences, your experience on the route. I mean, it's cool that you won. I don't know. I've never done it, so I don't know if I should necessarily have a strong opinion. But as a person who has been a fan of the sport and has watched it, I just appreciate that so much. Like the people that it attracts, you know. And the other neat thing that's cool about it is like anyone could come on and win it. I think that there's something neat about that, right? Like a bike messenger from Australia can show up on the scene and fucking win the thing. You're like, oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't know about that. You know? I mean, that's crazy, right? I love that part about it.
Me too. It's awesome. And look, I think a lot of people talk about ultra racing and how like there's this big leveler. And there is, in that, you know, like, you know, it's sort of like a level playing field for men and women. And while I think that's true in the sense that women are just as capable of men, and in a lot of cases more so, but I think to say it's a level playing field is like a little bit disingenuous, because I think women still have to overcome a lot on a lot of levels to compete at the same level, because, you know, like, men growing up are encouraged and facilitated to pursue, in a lot of cases, whatever they want, you know, and they're like,
It's true.
always told, you can do this, you can do anything that you put your mind to. And the same isn't true for a lot of women, and a lot of women are discouraged from pursuing sport, and they do not have the same support financially and emotionally to pursue sport and pursue their dreams. And so women have to overcome that, and they have to overcome the social barriers and the financial barriers in a lot more ways than men do. So for women to go out there and to compete at the same level or higher than men, they're overcoming a lot to do so. So I don't think I like it when people say that it's a level playing field, but I do love that it is maybe like a level-er playing field, and that women are coming out and just showing, like, in this sport exactly what they're capable of. And like you said, like, the community element of the sport is so important to me, as much as the racing is and pushing myself and pushing my limits. It's the community element that, like, keeps me so stoked. And I think that sort of just brings us full circle into back about, like, why I want to do this podcast, because, like, well, yeah, like, I love to have these conversations with people, you know, like Kurt Refsnyder and Lucky Morton, and people that are pushing like the absolute limits of this sport, because I can learn from them, and that I hope other people can learn from their stories too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And make me a better racer and stuff. But it's feeding back into that community, and that community spirit that's so huge in bikepacking, and that's like one of the biggest things for me. Just as big as racing is for me is the community element. So I think that kind of brings it full circle.
I agree, man. I was going to say, I feel like, you know, if there's anywhere that I would want to contribute, it would be to bikepacking and to the outdoors, and to getting people to experience it and to enjoy it however they want to. You and I like the bike. That's how we like to. Ultimately, we love to be outdoors. That's what it's really about, is being outside, that connection to nature, and being, you know, pushing yourself, all that fun stuff. And you can learn a lot about yourself. So, yeah. I guess I couldn't agree more. Like, that's what it really comes down to for me, is giving people I don't know, hopefully some inspiration, you know, and giving them a window into something that they didn't know about. And I'm going to be honest, like, I'm very selfish about it. Like, I really enjoy these conversations, you know, like, I reach out to people I'm super interested to talk to, and, like, just enamored by their stories and what they're capable of doing. It's always so funny to me that, like, we have these conversations about doing something that I think is one of the most incredibly challenging things that a human can do, at least physically and mentally, like I said. And we talk about it like it's just average day stuff, but it's not, man. This stuff is crazy. Anyway,
it is crazy, but I think the cool thing is, it's kind of like you were saying, like, you know, in that I just sort of came out of nowhere to do what I did at Tour Divide. But I think that just kind of goes to say that, as crazy as it is, like, I'm just a normal person. Like, I'm not like a freak athlete or anything like that. I'm a normal person that just loves riding my bike, and maybe I'm a bit too stubborn for my own good. But that's it. And it's like the sort of thing that, like, I think the cool thing is that, like, if you really want to do this, like, anybody can put their mind to this task and be capable of doing it.
I love that. And now you and I are both in a position to be able to be, to help facilitate that, right? Because we've identified areas in which the sport can be better. And so we have an opportunity to help it go in the direction it needs to go by being more diverse. And it is I think I don't know, man, at least the bike packing, I feel like the bike packing community is just like, come on, anybody, like, let's go ride bikes. Like, let's do this together. But we gotta just, I don't know. Like, bikepacking is so new. Like, I feel like it's good, and we can just keep it good and keep it going in that direction. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Like, so much other shit is so fucked up in the world. Like, so many people have fucked up, but this community and this sport or activity or whatever you want to call it, I feel like most times gets it right in a lot of ways, but it's still a white sport. But bikepacking grants, bikepacking routes, the grant program. I don't know if you listened to that podcast. So I partnered up with Bikepacking Routes.
Yep.
I'm going to give 1% of all my income from Bikes for Death to their BIPOC Adventure Grant Program. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's I love what they're doing because they're raising money and going to give it to a person or persons of color and allow them to have an adventure. And I trust them. I don't know exactly the details. I don't know if they do either, whether that's, help them pay for a trip or a bike or whatever it is that they need. But that's cool. Like, that's what we need because it is a very white, very male sport. But yeah, we can do better.
Absolutely. So I guess the way I see it is that we're in a unique position because we are such a young sport and we don't have like this history and this tradition of being so incredibly dominated by white males. And no doubt we are dominated, but without that I think ingrained history, we have a unique opportunity to do a lot better. And I think you see that history in stuff like the Tour de France or something, and really established sports where like people cling to that white history as an excuse. And so because we are so young, we have a really unique opportunity. And while I do think we're doing well, and I think we're doing better than other sports, we still have a long way to go. I personally have a long way to go. And like, I'm not ashamed to say that. Like, it's like I have a lot more that I can do. So as much as I'm saying this, like, that lens is also turned on me, too. And I'm trying to do like what I can with my platform and continue to do more.
Well, that circles back to what we were saying in the beginning about, you don't know till you know or whatever. And it's like, that's all you can do in life is continue to get better. Yep. Whether it's a podcast host or a bike pack racer or a human being, you just have to be committed to getting better, to being open-minded, to learning, to listening, and then making changes and doing things differently, and that's, but that you're completely right. It's not perfect. But what I like is the conversations that I'm having with people like you and other people who are very like-minded, and everybody seems very committed to this idea that in this industry, in the outdoors, it is for everybody. And like, let's make that a reality, like, let's not just say it, but like Bikepacking Routes, I love that. Like, let's fucking do something about it. Let's put our money where our mouth is. As a podcast, I know you and I are both committed to, diversity and of guests, and sharing all levels of experiences and stories because they all matter, right? So
that's it. And yeah, like you said, the Bikepacking Routes, BIPOC Adventure Grant is awesome. I donated a bit through my company, like my business, a little while back to them. And maybe now is a good segue for me to bring up as well. An interview I'm going to be bringing out really soon is with Miro Michael, who is the chairman of the Masaka Cycling Club in Uganda. So a good friend of mine, Ross Burridge, who's like Hidden Athlete podcast, has been working with them for a while.
Oh, yes. I know this now.
Yeah. And so, I'm really excited to talk about that and what they're doing over in Uganda and some of the opportunities that they're trying to provide on like a community and social level through this cycling team and cycling program. So there's a lot of stuff like that like, we're sitting here as two white dudes, and we have a responsibility to work towards that, and I think we're both working hard, and I think it's really great to see.
I've turned the lens very much on me, and like I said, I've been to jail. I've done, I don't know, but what I realized, I don't know, I'm getting deep into the woods now, but I really did look inwards, and I realized that when I was done doing drugs and living this lifestyle that I just decided I was going to live, and I didn't have a good reason for it. I didn't have a bad life or anything like that. And all I did was call mommy and daddy, and they came, picked me up, and they helped me, and they, and I'm here now. Like, that's when I got into cycling, and they just like really helped me. And I had a great family to go to. And, when I was in jail, there was 50 other people in that cell with me. And I was one of the very few white people in there. Right. And, I can almost assure you that many of them didn't have the same option. I mean, I talked to many of them, right? Like, they didn't have the option to call mommy and daddy and have them come pick them up, And so, yeah, I've really been looking inwards and turning that lens, and I have a lot to learn like you do, but it's good. I like growth. I like, good things happen when things are hard, right? Like, nothing happens when it's easy. So it's okay that it's going to be a little bit hard, but I'm looking forward to having more conversations and like being a part of the solution. I love that, right? Like, it's one thing to fucking bitch, and I'm sure you get, I don't know if you get like any commentary that's kind of negative. I get, people that talk shit about me sometimes on the interwebs, and I'm just like, do something, like I'm not telling everybody they have to think or believe or anything the way I do. But I've taken the effort to at least, I've made the effort to do something, right? And so I think there's just a lot of value in that for me, is not just poke holes at something. I heard an analogy recently that I really liked. It takes 6 months to build a house, right? Ish. But if I gave you a bulldozer and a blowtorch, you could take it down in a few hours, right? And that's the thing, is like, it's so easy to just tear something down. But like, do fucking something, like, don't just spend your time tearing people down. So, I mean, to speak to what you were saying is, yeah, we're two white guys sitting here, but all we can do is try to build a house and work and get better, right? Like, that's all we can do.
Yeah. That's it. And I think, yeah, like, you see this thing like a lot at the moment where mostly like white dudes are being like, oh, keep politics out of bikes. Like, why can't we just ride bikes? Why do we have to talk about, like, bring all this politics into it? And it's like, well, I wouldn't say it's politics, because like, we're just trying to make this accessible for everyone. And until everybody can just go ride your bike, like, how can you say like, let's leave this out of it and just ride our bikes? Because not everybody can just go ride their bike
exactly,
like, safely, or have access to a bike to ride or whatever. So until everybody has that opportunity, it's not good enough just like leave it be and go go off and ride our bikes. Like, you can say that as a white guy because you have the choice to just go ride your bike and forget about everything out. Like,
that's what I realized when I was in. That's what I realized is like, man, I had a choice. That's the difference. I had a choice. My parents bought me some sweet ass fucking BMX bikes. Like, it was sick. So anyway, I love it, man. I appreciate what you're doing, and I also think I had like 37 more questions, so I think we should do this again sometime.
Dude, it would be my absolute pleasure. This has been really fun. And hopefully it's been insightful for people to, I guess, like, get a bit of a picture of who we are like behind the mics.
I hope so, man. It's fun for me. It's fun to talk to another podcaster, like you were saying at the beginning. So hopefully other people will find it interesting as well. If not, well, too bad. You wasted an hour and a half of your life. Sorry.
All right, man. Cool. I guess that's a wrap.
Yeah. No, it's a wrap for now. Let's do it again.
Yeah. What's that thing you say? Ride your damn bike.
Yeah. All right, you motherfuckers. Go ride your damn bike.
Thanks for listening to the Overland Archive. Join me next time for more Tales from the Trail.
You load up your bike, you ride away from home. You could be with your friends or you could be alone. You ride for a day or maybe more. You just love being in the great outdoors. Everything you need is strapped to your bars, including that new pillow you got from Santa Claus. And then you think, oh shit, to yourself. You left that super lightweight tent on the living room shelf. Bikes.